So I'd normally maybe say I'll start with the ladies, but Tarek, as you're outnumbered, I shall start with you. Just tell us a little bit about Blooming Box and what you do and how it figures on the e-commerce platform, perhaps.
Sure. So Blooming Box is an online gifting platform born with a vision to revolutionize the gifting industry. And when we say revolutionize, it can tap into how people behave towards gifting, the product offering, and the user experience, in particular on the website. We're 80 people. We've covered almost 500,000 orders in the past 7 years. We've just surpassed actually 500,000 orders.
Fantastic.
We're currently in the UAE and we just launched in Riyadh.
Thank you very much. I'd like to come back to Lena. I'm going to come across the three of you and make sure that you've all got plenty of airtime. So, Lena, with your background, what do you actually think are some key strategies that you would recommend to strengthen partnerships with in the marketplace with your background in e-commerce?
The reason I'm asking, because it's advice, well, I'll try to tailor it to the audience here. When it comes to relationship between marketplaces and the sellers, the key reason is that you as a seller need to acknowledge that marketplace is just giving you a platform, okay? Their work has been done when they've managed to build a brand. Let's take Noon, right? It's a brand is there, and they're providing you the tech, and the work has to be done from your side. So a lot of the brand owners, or let's say producers, sometimes assume that by listing on a marketplace, the partnership goes one way and the marketplace will do all the heavy lifting. That's not going to happen. So remember that you are dealing with people at the other side. People like support. So if you are a brand owner or a reseller, for example, operating in the United Arab Emirates or Saudi, you need to remember that everyone wants to sell on the famous marketplaces here. So as a brand owner, you need to provide help. By providing help, what does it mean? Be involved in writing those descriptions. Whenever they load your product on their platforms, make sure you check. Ask the marketplaces what promotions they have going on. Now is Black Friday. How many of you tried to get in touch with, whether it's Amazon, Noon, Namshi, or any other small, like Carrefour has a huge marketplace. How many of you got in touch with them and asked, can I participate in those offers? So collaboration when it comes to marketplace and sellers, first thing in that partnership starts is that actually seller does 80% of the job. If you put 80% of the job, believe me, second year, it would be 50-50. Third year, it would be you do 30 and the marketplace does 70% because you nailed it in the first couple of years. So that partnership starts one-sided and then goes 50-50 and then goes actually where the marketplace does the heavy lifting for you. That's how you succeed in this sort of marketplace, B2B type of environment in the GCC region.
So very interesting there, Lena. You're saying that a lot of the impetus, certainly in the early stages, has to come from the brand itself rather than the platform. I'd be interested to hear, Victoria, your view coming from the opposite end of the spectrum. What do you think are the critical factors for improving that sort of a paper or stationery brand, as we are at Paperworld, visibility on growth on an e-commerce platform?
Yeah, so I think, visibility is essential. It's critical. You have to get your product in front of the consumers. The digital shelf is endless. It can go on and on and on. So how do you get your product to the top of the search results, to the top of the category landing page? Lena's right. As a marketplace, there's a lot of brands, there's a lot of products. Endless number of products can be listed on a marketplace. How do you stand out? How do you cut to the top? There's sort of two ways to get visibility: organically, and you can pay. So, you can earn that top spot. And this, all the e-commerce players will have an algorithm for how you get to that spot. And it's going to be about what sells. We want to make money. We want them to make money. Customers should find the products that they want to buy and buy them. So you can earn that with having products that have good reviews, good content, good sales history. If you're a new brand that you want to cut in, or if you want to be competitive, you can pay to play. There's a lot of ad products. There's a lot of ways to kind of cut the line for visibility. And these are more of the performance-driven ad products, the pay-per-click, the sort of sponsored ads, if you will. You can also do branding work to get visibility. It depends on what your objectives are. But with time, as you start to, you can start by paying for visibility. And then as you get the sales, you'll start to move into that spot where you've earned the visibility. You're going to come up in the top search results. And also, as Lena said, that description for your product, you need the algorithms to be able to crawl your page. They have to find the keywords. They have to find the model number. They have to find the pack size, the color. The images need to be good so that the algorithm can make sure your products come up when someone is searching for them.
Very interesting. So obviously what you're saying is if you really want your visibility sooner rather than later, the best way to do is to pay for it and then expect the organic growth to follow if you've got the right keywords and the algorithm picks that up.
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting. Tarek, I'll come back to you and let's take it back to Blooming Box, because apart from printing paper stationery, you're in the gifting industry as well, and we've touched on packaging quite a lot during the course of the last 2 days. So, in the gifting industry, packaging obviously plays a very significant role and is part of the entire experience, really, isn't it? So a lot of thought goes into that. So how do you ensure that kind of your packaging quality meets and aligns with customer expectations? And, what do you look for in your packaging partners? We've touched on all sorts of things with packaging, sustainability and price. So what would you say about your packaging?
Very well said and very well put. I mean, first impressions last. And so in gifting, generally, one of the main key elements to the gifting experience is the packaging. Now, needless to say, it does not mean we neglect the quality of the products that goes inside the packaging, but it also means that the packaging, which is your first impression, has to keep you at a wow factor in a way. We as Blooming Box have been very dedicated to ensure that the packaging is ultimately what we differentiate ourselves from within players in the market. And we've looked at details like the type of paper we use. We know paper names, which are considered special papers. We not only look at the quality of paper with suppliers and partners, I think more importantly, we'd like to have what we call partners rather than just suppliers, because we want people that can help us resolve specific issues when it comes to packaging. For instance, we want to launch a collection and we might have a certain mindset towards the pricing of that collection. Naturally, what a supplier would do is they can come up and say, give me your design, I'll execute and I'll deliver. And that's the common approach. But we look for a partner that we can reach out to and say, we've got this idea. The main objective of the collection is we'd like to target millennials or Gen Zs. The target price for costing on packaging is X dirhams. And we'd like the most creative yet most premium way to match that cost at that quality. And we realized through the experience of dealing with multiple suppliers, very few can offer that sort of a consultancy approach where they could start offering solutions for your packaging, but not just the quality. So luckily today we're blessed to have a handful of suppliers, in particular in packaging, that we rely on, also assist us in basically coming up with the right solutions back to our customers with the highest quality possible.
Thank you very much for that, Tarek. I'd like to come to you, Lena. Based on your experience, what do you say are the initial steps that a stationery or paper brand needs to take to establish that successful B2B presence on these leading marketplaces? You touched earlier on some of the points, but would you like to add to that for some of the, maybe some of our audience?
Yeah, so as we are discussing e-commerce and B2B, let's just take one step back and highlight that if you are truly a B2B, whether you are a manufacturer or currently selling only to the B2B, like if you're currently supplying Carrefour, the stationery, okay? E-commerce is not natural to you as an organization, okay? You never had to worry about big marketing departments. You never had to worry about how does your brand stand out in a very crowded social media ecosystem. So first of all is that you as a company, whether you are manufacturer or reseller, but reseller to the B2B like distributor, you need to acknowledge that are you good in e-commerce? Because in e-commerce, you can build e-commerce B2B, But you need to remember that the person that is buying, even at B2B, so some of us might be going and buying on Alibaba. If you're buying on Alibaba, you still expect B2C experience on the B2B platform. So maybe Alibaba puts that you need to buy 50 units, but you still expect to be able to pay by credit card. You still expect them to show you a delivery like methods and promise you that it will arrive in your, warehouse by certain day. And you still expect to have positive reviews about the products you're buying. So B2B, selling online, sometimes it comes with, you have to put a B2C consumer's hat and then apply B2B fundamentals. So when you put B2C consumer's hat, what first thing comes in your mind? How do they stand on social media? No one tells you as a manufacturer to go and start singing and dancing on TikTok. But you need to have a TikTok account, okay? So maybe you are not going to be a managing director, and doing all the latest trends of TikTok. But you need to use TikTok to highlight that you are in Carrefour, that you are selling to Borders, that you are on Noon, that maybe the biggest Jumeirah groups and whatever else is using your products. Because even though you are B2B, your visibility on social networks and your visibility in a digital ecosystem, that's what will make you unique when it comes to choosing manufacturer A versus manufacturer B. Believe me, I work with retailers that buy from you guys as a paper, like mainly grocery platforms. And as a buyer, you first of all think, what are they known? What can I do to that brand? How easy for me will be to sell to a B2C customer using their product? And the easier, coming to my earlier point, the easier you make it for Carrefour to sell your brand, believe me, Carrefour will put you on their Instagram if you have that content. But majority of the manufacturers, unfortunately, does not have that content. Unfortunately, they don't even have digital marketing assets that Carrefour can use to promote your product on paid media. So really, really, my advice is that as a B2B player, you need to, if you really want to do online, and we're sitting in e-commerce, you need to start first of all having people in your organizations that understand digital marketing, that starts positioning you on social media networks, and starts having a website that at least has your catalog on it.
So social media, whether you like it or hate it, is an absolute must.
Absolutely must.
Yeah?
If you one day you want to do, maybe one day you will do D2C. Because let me tell you, and you will read in the book, if you can, Timo completely cut middle. Now it goes manufacturer to consumer. So one day, maybe it's not today, if you are a B2B brand now, you will naturally become B2C. So the earlier you start hiring the team, I'm not saying go for the famous CMOs. Even having a contractor doing a social media post once a week, it's not good enough if you're a B2C brand. But as a B2B, it's enough. It will still put you ahead of 95% of the B2B manufacturers today.
How interesting that they don't actually think that way. But Victoria, I'd like to come to you. You touched earlier on how you can get exposure on a platform, for instance, like yours. But how can, if you're a smaller brand and perhaps you don't have the money to throw into it to begin with, how can those smaller brands compete with the more established brands for consumer attention on an e-commerce platform like Noon?
So brands that don't necessarily have a track record or have a sales history for the algorithm to pick up and say, this is definitely going to sell, because we're always trying to put the products that are definitely going to sell in front of the consumers. A lot of these sort of pay-per-click products for getting visibility are not that expensive. It's pay-per-click. So only if you're actually getting a click, you pay. So this is probably the first place I would tell a brand to invest. It's similar to buying shelf share. When you want to go to Carrefour and have your product on the shelf, if you want the premium spot, you pay. it's the same principle, but in the online world. But for a brand to build up that presence and to kind of stand out and differentiate, content is another really important place. We as the marketplace, we want to help you sell. We win when you win. So if you have the assets ready, if you have good content, if you have good images, if you have a unique selling proposition, help us help you. If you have this, if you have the assets, then we can partner with you. We can help promote your brand. If you have something interesting that's going to bring me new customers, that's going to bring me a new audience, that's going to grow my category, I'm always hungry for this. Whether you're a small brand or a big brand, if you can bring me that, I'm willing to take a chance. I always want to grow. So if you're ready, if you have a bit of that B2C hat on, if you have those assets, if you can, I mean, there's freelancers galore. You can make them quickly, right? But you have to have that mindset. You have to have that interest in that drive to work. And e-commerce moves quickly. You have to be ready and be ready to move quickly. And we're always willing to experiment. That's the beauty of e-commerce. You can do things quickly and cheaply, and you can experiment. And if it doesn't work, if that ad's not working, change it. Do something different.
And does that mean you have to work, does there have to be very close collaboration between Noon and the company, or would you expect the company to come to you with a fully fledged, here's my strategy, here's all the assets, bingo, that's what I want? Or is it something that you work on and develop together?
Yeah, the beauty of a lot of the marketplace platforms is they're quite self-service. So, we're an open platform. Anyone can be a seller. You need a trade license. You have to legally be able to be a seller, but it's not a lot of things you have to do to start selling, to at least list your products on Noon. How do you get the attention of my team to help you manage and navigate? Sales is part of it, but also having an interesting product, reaching out, being at places like this. We're always looking to develop our business as well. There's ways to get in touch, but having a clear positioning of your product. Why are you unique? Why are you going to sell? Why is your product going to bring me new customers or grow and expand what is the stationery category? How are you going to differentiate versus all the other products on the platform? And, you can start listing. You can start doing the ads yourself. There's a lot you can do by yourself. And then when you're ready and if you want, reach out. We're interested in building businesses. You don't have to have a fully fledged plan, but you have to be willing to move fast and willing to, you can't expect, as Lena said, you can't expect the marketplace platform to do it all for you if you're a small, unproven brand. We have limited time, limited resources, but we're always interested.
It's quite a challenge, really, isn't it, for some of those smaller brands? There's so many voices in the marketplace to somehow differentiate yourself and get that little bit of attention from the big platforms from like that. So Tarek, I'll come back to you. You talked about packaging recently, and of course, one of the big themes of the panels over here and the speakers has been sort of sustainable packaging and having that eco-friendly approach. So, presumably, an awful lot of packaging goes into your products. I may be wrong, but I'm assuming a lot of packaging goes into your products. So, how do you incorporate or make sure that your packaging is eco-friendly and meeting perhaps those consumer demands?
I'd love to say that we do have sustainable packaging, but we don't.
It's very honest of you.
Reason being, we've tried it out for some time. The main reason is because we're in the business of harvesting flowers. And it felt a bit contradictory to offer sustainable packaging for harvested flowers. It kind of defeats the purpose and it can backfire, which is why we felt as part of the brand guidelines and values, we wanted to be honest to our customers about how we feel about the business. And we decided to just discontinue the line. However, we've been doing a lot of research on the secrets to a happy life.
Okay.
And I'll tell you where I'm coming with that point.
Sure.
So, according to Harvard, upon an 80-year-old study, they figured out the secret to happiness.
Sorry, did you say 80?
80 years.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys can read about it. And can you guys guess what is the main reason to a happy life? If anyone has any suggestions, please raise your hand. Sure, a happy wife. Okay.
I'm sure there's plenty of answers out there. Here we go. Do shout. I think we've got a microphone here.
Meaning.
Okay. Okay, great.
Anything else?
Excellent. We've got some lights.
Help.
We can see some hands. Anything else? Anyone else want to add to that?
So, meaning is pretty close. It's actually meaningful relationships. So it's about having happy relationships. Which brings us to our mission as a business, which is why sustainability can fit into the main motto of the business, because our mission is to hopefully inspire people to build more meaningful relationships that are more sustainable. And we do that by wanting to be a part of every emotional transaction that takes place between two individuals. So we're not in the business of selling products, really. We're in the business of building sustainable relationships, if we like to call it that.
What a great twist. I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's not just as simple as a bunch of flowers on any particular day. I love that. It's a great take on that. Lena, just building on what Victoria was saying earlier on, what would your advice be sort of for companies in the paper industry to approach that whole pricing and product visibility on marketplaces to stand out when there's so many voices and so much competition? What can they do in that area to differentiate themselves and grab that attention?
First of all, acknowledge that no one is going to give you the data. Okay? So what does that mean? Despite how much I love Noon, despite how much I love all my other clients on the retail side, they are making money from selling you the data. So what does that mean? Is that you as a manufacturer, as a brand, you don't understand who is the consumer, right? So the first question you should have is, what can I do to try to understand more about who is my customer? Because as Victoria mentioned, you can continue doing the ads, and absolutely you should be doing the ads. But the problem is the ads went up 20% in cost in the last 12 months. Problem number one. This region, cost per acquisition, is the highest in the world. Okay? So again, you can continue running the ads, get attention, and maybe you are making, but definitely your margins do not increase by 20%, right? So no matter how hard you try, every single year you become poorer and poorer as a B2B brand because of the digital ecosystem costs going up. And also you cannot increase the cost by 20% because of the competition. So the only way to kind of, first of all, remain competitive and probably stay in this game is to try to get to the consumer as quickly as possible. Now, what can we do? You cannot sell to Noon and bring your own packaging, okay? Because that's Noon's packaging. So you cannot put all the traditional leaflets buy second time from my.com and then get 20% off, okay? That's not possible. So you need to get very, very creative with your product packaging, okay? The QR codes became one thing that probably COVID was good. We all had QR codes for years and years, and we never could figure out how to use them. But after COVID, I think all of us managed to figure it out. So first is very simple things, that adding that QR code to your product itself, because you cannot rely on the boxes that the product is packed. So now, second question, when they scan, assume that only 5% of purchasers will scan, and that's fine. 5% is still better than zero, okay? So they scanned it. Where do they go? What experience as a manufacturer or as a distributor you are giving to that customer that scanned? So if I take this, okay, this is not paper, but bottle of water, it doesn't have a QR code. But if it has, I scanned it. Where do you lead me to? Are you leading me to something boring? Or are you leading me to something that, for example, sorry to say, but stationery is boring category, the same as selling tomatoes. It's boring. It's a necessity, but it's boring. So can you become interesting? Do you lead me to your TikTok because it's great? Do you lead me to your website because it's great? What can I get on your website? Maybe I can subscribe to the next pre-launch event that you will send me some, I don't know, something for my kids for the next new year. With some of the paper, and stationery brands, what we've done, I would scan it and I would give you as a parent all, sort of stationery that you need for your next school year. I will not just give you that list. If you came to my website, even if it's a B2B website, I would send you reminders. I would send you where to buy my products. I would direct you to Carrefour and say, when you're in Carrefour, pick this product together with maybe some of my competitor products. Basically, I will get you the end-to-end experience. When I got you onto that end-to-end experience, believe me, even if loyalty is dead, you, either as a parent, as a secretary who's buying for the office, as someone, as an entrepreneur who plays 20 different roles, from buying stationery to your team to actually selling your business, you would truly appreciate me as a brand, as a manufacturer, because you, this manufacturer, made my life easier. And that's how relationship, this B2B business is built. And guess what? As a consumer, next time I go to Carrefour, I might ask, do you have company A? When I'm on Noon, I will start searching for your brand. Guess what? Victoria looks at every single search that happens on Noon. If she starts seeing that 1,000 people search for, I don't know, San Pellegrino water, right? Let's say, I don't want to, if she sees it, this time, not you come and knock on her door, but she would come after you. And when she comes after you, believe me, you call the shots. She would be a lot easier to give you free adverts on her platform, free banner on her platform, and support your growth. Because she knows that she has a customers who are searching for your specific product range. And if Noon doesn't have it, that customer will go on Amazon. That customer will go on Carrefour. Or that customer will go and shop in physical stores. So at the end of the day, the marketplace is losing. This way, you as the owner of the brand call the shots. And that's what I really encourage the, manufacturers, distributors to start thinking about it. Even if it's really hard work, even if 95% of your day is involved signing a normal B2B deals, but 5% of that week has to be really thinking about how do you compete and survive, not just this year, but for the next 12, 24, and 10 years in advance, because it's not getting easier.
So I find that was very insightful advice over there. And I'll hold my hand up and say I'm certainly not an expert in this area at all, unlike the people here and unlike you. But I was intrigued as to whether I've got the right end of the stick. And without kind of setting the cat amongst the pigeons, are you essentially saying that the e-commerce platforms have a lot of data that they won't share with you as a manufacturer, which is what you need? And in a way, what you're saying seems to suggest almost cutting out the e-platform, because I'd like to give Victoria the opportunity to say, what would your response to that be with that with the advice that Lena's actually offering manufacturers? How do you cope with that, and how would you answer that?
Sure. We have a lot of brands that are sold on Noon that have their own e-commerce websites, but they're still on Noon. And there's a reason why. It's the scale. It's the efficiency. We have the largest last mile delivery network in Saudi. No other company can ring as many doorbells as we can. And those people, their eyeballs are on our platform. Same thing in UAE. So in terms of the scale of available people to see your product, you need to be on a big player. You want those eyeballs. And from an efficiency perspective, yes, you can build your own e-commerce site. Absolutely. But it is going to cost you a fortune. And the acquisition cost of getting customers is enormous in this region. So we already have the customers. We have the eyeballs. Finding out how to get them to look at your specific product is the only job. You don't have to bring them, have a platform, manage the platform, have a warehouse, have a last mile delivery network. There are companies that want to do that, but they're Fortune 500 companies that are at massive global scales. If you're a small business, this is very expensive. It's easier to acquire a customer who's already on the site and just shift them to you than it is to acquire a customer. But what she was saying of creating a demand for your product, absolutely. We, as Noon, we run the marketplace where sellers can come and sell their products. And we just facilitate that B2C transaction. But we also do B2B. We, as a company, we also act as a retailer. We buy products from brands, from manufacturers, and I'm going to jump ahead. I think this is one of the questions you wanted to talk about.
Please go ahead.
How to get us to buy your product. It's, I can give a very simple answer and I can give a more nuanced answer, but the simplest answer is have a product people want. So establishing that people want that product is how you get my attention. So either I can figure out people want that from my search trends, from Google, from data, from bestseller lists, whatever, or you can knock on my door and prove it to me. But ultimately, getting a marketplace to buy your product and is about having a product that's in demand. We need to know that customers want this product. And there's a lot, we've kind of talked about how to do that. But yeah, and how to get new and interested in your product is having a product that's going to sell. Differentiated, unique, innovative, clear, unique selling propositions. Why should I buy this paper brand and push it and have it be my category, hero versus this paper brand? It's that B2C mindset. It's understanding what's unique, what's going to sell, and obviously being price competitive.
And that's a big ask in what can potentially be a commodity market as such. I know there's different categories, but it's a big ask to be able to differentiate yourself in that sort of market, I guess. Tarek, let me come back to you. You also work with a range of brands. You touched on that a little bit earlier on. So, how do you help those sort of smaller brands that you might work with in scaling their operations and through marketplace platforms, really? Do you have any advice for them? Or what do you do to help?
Obviously, we've got two experts on marketplaces, so my advice would not be as valid, nor will it be as beneficial. And Blooming Box is not a marketplace. We are a brand. Yet the contribution to how we can potentially, hopefully as well, assist brands is via our Hampers collection, which is where we highlight main collaborations with brands, both local and international. We've collaborated with a handful of very well-renowned brands, such as Dolce & Gabbana, Montblanc, and so on and so forth, but also local brands. And just like those, let's say, small local brands, we were once a small local brand, and we wanted someone to believe in us. And we wanted someone to give us that opportunity, trust, and push. And given that we were blessed to deal with the right channels at the time, some people believed in us and said, sure, we're going to welcome you on board and we're going to give you the push. In return, the least we can do is collaborate with local brands that we believe in. They need to be aligned with our guidelines, obviously, but as long as we believe with them, we've seen that those collaborations can go a very long way. Because what you're doing is I'll give an example on a brand that people probably know already. So Mirzam is they're an upcoming chocolate brand, Dubai-based. It's pretty decent, very massive now. Back then, when they had just launched, we were about a 4-year-old company. The moment we collaborated with them, they went on the top trend on our number one selling hampers or collaborations, which immediately gave us both a benefit. Because to the customer, I love Mirzam as a chocolate brand, but I also love Blooming Box as a gifting, or let's say as known as a flower brand. Although we're so much more, by the way. So by combining two brands, you're ultimately giving back dual value to the customer. Combining two of their favorite products back to them at one value.
You get that synergy.
Correct. And numbers were massive for both of us. For us, for them, it was a very successful collaboration. Now, take that and consider 70 other collaborations. That's maybe our way of assisting as much as we can. We're more on the other side of the table. We want to be assisted by marketplaces.
And to just follow on that a little bit, Tarek, do you find that there's a preference from your customers to deal with local brands as opposed to some of the international brands? And do you just stick to local brands, or is it a mix?
I think very hard to say, because we've seen interest on both. We launched a Dolce & Gabbana campaign, official collaboration, sold out in less than 2 days.
Wow.
And we've also seen the same happen with Mirzam. So we've seen the interest on that side of the story. We've seen the interest on that side of the story. I think there's value in both. I think people like to support local businesses as part of their nature, especially being brought up in UAE, which is home to many. You kind of feel like you're connected to those brands, especially if it's like, for example, Fixed Chocolate, which we're all happy about, I'm assuming, right? They got on a trend and they created a massive campaign, which started off with an influencer campaign, which goes back to what Lena was saying. Sometimes it's one post, right? And here it is. All around the world, people are trying to replicate it. So it's become not only a trend, but a trendsetter. And so, yes, in reality, people want to support local brands. But I think we're also growing up watching a lot of, Hollywood movies and TV shows, and we're prone to loving international brands as well, especially American, French, British. I mean, it's just how we are as humans. So we're connected to them as well.
So you find it's a bit of a balance at the moment, right?
I mean, my head of product is here, she can confirm, but I would assume that is mostly the case. It's a balance.
Great. Thank you, Tarek. So, Lena, let me come back to you. If you were to be advising some of these paper and stationery companies wanting to build long-term relationships with marketplace platforms to ensure that kind of growth, any advice on that?
Wow, I feel like I'm giving a lot of advice today, just so the guys will leave thinking, oh, wow, I have a headache just from our talk. No, but just maybe building on what I said earlier, and also just not repeat the same advice still stands when you come. I agree with what Victoria says in terms of marketplaces here have scale. And the big maybe not mistake, but misconception that the brands have is that they want to be famous, right? But they also want volume. They also want high margin. They don't. So the reality is you cannot become famous. You cannot, so if you work with Tarek, you have to let Tarek also make some money, right? On a margin. So you can't just go and operate on your own margin. Then when it comes to Noon, you say, no, I don't want to give that percent to the marketplace. Well, unfortunately, the rules have been set, right? And instead of, I would say, complaining that you don't want to give that percent of the margin away, you should remember that you are calling the shots. So Noon does not, okay, they have their own now private label, but let's say marketplaces do not have products. They are resellers, right? So you as a brand always have an opportunity to pull out, right? So you could stop supplying any of the distributor, any of the retailer, or any of the marketplace anytime you want. But at the start, when you start the journey, when you are small, use these marketplaces as a free marketing channel and stop worrying about the margin and start thinking that the money you're saving on marketing, because they are actually doing you the marketing, right? So by being on Noon, it's a free marketing. Even if you're not putting anything in the ads, yes, maybe you will not be the most visible brand, but you are still there. So even if you sell 5 units a day, you're still selling it, and it's still cheaper than running your own operation. So the first thing is you should list your brand on every single marketplace. That's my first advice. But second advice, remember, the marketplaces, a bit to earlier conversation, they're not gonna build your brand. So if you have a vision as a manufacturer to become a brand, right? Marketplaces are not gonna make you a brand. So if you launch product number 2, you are starting from zero again. But when you have a brand reputation, product 2, product 3, and the 4 becomes easier. So it's kind of like a juggling act. If you want the money, which you should want the money whenever you are starting or trying to enter the new market, you should be on marketplaces. But never ever forget about building a brand. And brand is built by what we discussed earlier, by working with influencers. Influencers will not get you sales, but they will help you build a brand. By doing your own, some sort of, not necessary e-commerce website, but having a website. How many, no kidding you, I can walk through this aisle today after this speech, and if I check their websites, half of their websites will be looking 1950s. This is the brand is not built these days. You cannot have a 1950s websites. You don't need to sell, right? You don't need to sell, but to have a catalog that is engaging. So when you knock on Victoria's door, what's the first thing she's going to do? She will check your product physically, but she's also going to check your website. So if it all looks awful, and if you don't have, let's say, imagine you go on I don't know how to pronounce, but let's say PrayTap, right? I go into their website and they show me that they will work with Walmart. What do you think Victoria thinks? Wow, Walmart believes in them. So maybe it's worth the second look. So it's a human perception as a brand. Yes, you could be a B2B player, but looking great online is important. And when you look great, the second collection, second range, maybe you don't have organic range now. One day you'll have organic or sustainable or whatever. It becomes easier. And that's how it's done. It costs you money. That's why you have to be selling the product, what I mentioned from the start. So you can invest that money into building that brand.
And I can identify 100% with what you're saying, because to go on a website where it's not user-friendly or it's not working properly or it just looks outdated just automatically switches you off and you go, right, I'll go somewhere else. So a very valid point over there. And Victoria, we've talked a lot about going onto, as a new product, going onto an e-commerce platform and entering a market. But what do you do if you're wanting to drive that repeat business, those repeat sales on your platform in that B2B sector? Do you have any, again, advice? Because I'm sure there's plenty of people here that are loving all the free advice that's coming to them from the three of you. So go for it. Give them a bit more advice.
Sure. Look, repeat sales on my platform are good for me. I'm happy to give the advice all day. We both win when you have a sale, so it's easy to give that advice. I think I can talk about B2B in kind of two ways. If you're a marketplace seller on my platform, there are businesses, by the way, that come to Noon and buy their products. Small businesses that maybe don't kind of go to the traditional wholesale or the traditional stationery paper supplier. They don't need that volume. We do see people buying for their business on Noon. They like the experience. It's easy to navigate. They're familiar. They use it personally. And when they need a couple boxes of paper or they need staplers or whatever it is that they need for the office, we do see people buying the multi-packs, the bigger packs. And this happens usually when we have promotions and discounts, because this is where they get the best deal. So if you are selling these products and you want to have businesses buy your products through Noon, obviously offer the bulk packs, the bigger, bulk discount. That's essentially what stationery wholesalers do. They're giving you a bulk discount. You can kind of replicate that through your products on a e-commerce platform. But this is not a huge part. We're B2C. The other side of this B2B question of how do you get me as Noon to buy your product again? How do I place another PO with you? Is again having a product that sells. So it's that building a brand, getting the sales, but also interesting me in new products, having another line, having a new innovation. Once you get into that B2B relationship with a retailer, how do you get repeat purchases? Also be a good partner, deliver on time, deliver in full, be easy to work with, and the basics of doing business. But I can't underscore how important it is to be easy to work with. And I need the products. If I bought the products from you, I need them in my warehouse as quickly as possible. And I think the twist for the B2B side of things with e-commerce players is, while some retailers they might be okay waiting a few months to close the deal, I want to close the deal right now, today. So being flexible, being quick. Opportunities come and go very quickly. Trends come and go very quickly. So if I'm interested in buying your products, I want to buy it right now. And I want it online right now.
Before it goes out of fashion or out of style.
Exactly. Or, I don't want to miss a single sale. If someone comes on my site and searches for your product, if, you missed your warehouse appointment and I need to wait 2 days for your truck to come and deliver, you've lost 2 days of sales. And there's somebody else I can buy a similar product from who's going to deliver it on time. It is a bit the basics, but these aren't easy to do, So
otherwise everybody would be doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, building a B2B relationship with a retailer, an e-commerce retailer, it's the same fundamentals as any retail business, with the extra pressure, if you will, of being quick and fast and kind of ready to have that content available. When you're launching a new product, help me list it. Be easy. Don't, this needs to be done quickly. And I'm happy to do business.
Brilliant. Tarek, were you going to add anything else to that? Or, because I'm going to give you the last word. I'm just keeping an eye on the time because I know people want to ask you three some questions as well. So my last question to you was, B2C brands, what are some of the significant challenges that you may have faced when it comes to adapting to these e-commerce marketplaces?
As Blooming Box, we are featured on a couple of them. We see the value. I think the only thing I would say is, look, I mean, of course, commission can be heavy sometimes, especially when you do it at with products that have a bit of low margins. I did manage the electronics vertical at Kubon back in the days, so I understand that some products have very tight margins, and to give out a commission, being the middleman, can be a bit challenging. But as Blooming Box, I would say the art is in setting the right expectations. So what do you want from a marketplace? Are you there to increase the revenue? Are you there to increase your exposure? Do you want to do both, which is doable but challenging as well? And once you've identified the expectation, it changes your view on the matter. Some people go on Shark Tank in the US not to close a deal. They go to get free publicity, and they do. Others go to Shark Tank to secure a deal. So Blooming Box's main objective and the expectation set from third parties has always been to be treated exclusively. So we are on Talabat, for instance. We're given a priority when it comes to the positioning of the brand, our brand guidelines, what we'd like to feature, the marketing communication. And we feel like, and of course, not only us, there's a few other players as well, but we feel like we somehow can build on that relationship, not only for revenue, but also for brand building, because they also have a massive database. So if you've set the right expectations, and that maybe is a more generic advice to life, I think a lot of people, there's a quote that I love that says, when someone shows the true colors, don't paint a different picture. And it's a natural habit as humans to set expectations based on what we want, not based on what the marketplace is willing to offer. So maybe set the right expectation based on what they've done for other brands, and combine it with what you'd like, and hopefully you'll have a healthy relationship with marketplaces, is the way I see it.
Great advice, Tariq. Thank you very much indeed.